Let's go ahead and play the audio.
We have the audio?
We want y'all to hear it.
If you would have come here when you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
What was it?
What world do you live in?
I don't see why you gotta be disrespectful, honestly.
Get out of here. Go. You're off the team. You're done. See ya.
Because
See ya. Go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team. So go read your rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach has to meet with you and you don't show up for weeks, okay, we can remove you from the team. It's called being a pussy. It's called hiding behind and not showing up to work.
Now, I'm sure most of you watching this and listening to this are either at work, going to work, getting ready to go to work, and you live in the real world. So I want you to imagine, in whatever job you're in, whether you're a salesman, whether you're an accountant, whether you're a garbage man, imagine going to your boss, having your boss tell you that they want you to change positions or do something, you asking if that was a choice or a command, then deciding you didn't want to do it, therefore you're going to take 2 weeks off for a mental health break. Now imagine saying all that, then showing up back into your boss's office after the 2 weeks, and your boss firing you. Can you imagine being shocked by that? No, because that's how we operate. There's a hierarchy to things. There's a totem pole to the way we live our lives, regardless of what business you're in. Even bosses have bosses. The goal is to try and make it all the way to the top. That's why when this leaked audio of Ole Miss head football coach Lane Kiffin came out between him and Ole Miss defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins, who's now suing the university, and Lane Kiffin basically told him, hey, you wanted to meet, or I wanted to meet with you. You decided you didn't want to meet with me. Then you wanted to take 2 weeks off. Now I'm kicking you off the team. That shouldn't be a shock to anyone. But when we consistently baby 18 to 22-year-olds, or we continue to treat young adults or adults like children, we shouldn't be shocked when they act like children. And for anybody that says that the college football business is not the real world, maybe tell that to all the players who are now involved in NIL. You want it in the business, there's a lot that comes with that. Now also think for a second, having the gall or the audacity to tell your boss that he's in the wrong and you should be able to take off anytime you want. That's not the world we live in. And it's doing a disservice to young people to treat them in a way that doesn't prepare them or mold them for their future. We used to ask 18-year-olds to drop on the coast of France and go fight the Nazis. Now we can't even ask them to show up for 2 weeks of work or at least come meet with us when they feel like they need some time off due to a mental health break. And listen, mental health is a real thing. We've dealt with it in my family. Hands-on, as close as you can possibly get. And that shouldn't be downplayed. But it's not an excuse when it doesn't go your way. It's not a crutch when life throws you a curveball. Sometimes you got to sit back and take the ball the other way. I'm going to bring in my co-host, former Michigan quarterback David Cohn, my brother, former Western Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crane. Guys, I talked about this yesterday, said we're going to talk about it today. And also, we know who's sitting to my right. Play the graphic. Let's get this out of the way. You wanted to.
This is flaming vodka!
All right, let's get to the important stuff. David,
that is important.
I understand that mental health is something, especially nowadays with social media and the age we live in, is something that needs to be dealt with. We need to be able to talk about it and put it out there. But Lane Kiffin did use some choice words yesterday, and we have the audio that I'll drop under this when I post it. He did say, call him the P word. He did say he was hiding behind it. Could Lane Kiffin have maybe used different language? Could he have been maybe less pissed off about it? Yeah, but in this case, I feel like it was necessary. Why do we continue to treat young adults, 18 to 22-year-olds, like 8 to 12-year-olds? Lane Kiffin basically told this man, I asked to meet with you. You would not meet with me. Then you want to show up and act like everything's okay. Mm-hmm. I can't do that in my life in the real world. You can't. People out there listening in the audience can't. Was Lane Kiffin in the wrong here?
In any instance where audio is going to be secretly recorded and then put out publicly, I would like for the entire clip to be put out. For starters, just so we have context. And even that wouldn't, tell us the entire context of the relationship. I actually thought Chris Marler yesterday put out a really good tweet on this, encapsulating the situation perfectly and striking a balance between, the trials and tribulations that everyone is going through, especially at 18 to 22 years old, but also not using that as an excuse to skirt your responsibilities. I think Lane Kiffin and everyone would maybe speak differently if they knew they were being recorded at all times, and maybe that's a good lesson for everyone is, hey, speak to people all the time as if you were being recorded and that was going to be put out publicly. But I'll tell you, as someone who played football for a long time, I've been in a lot of locker rooms, I've been talked to a lot worse, and I feel like, and I've never taken 2 weeks off and didn't show up when the head coach wanted to talk to me. My main two things here. One, if you're this negatively affected by your mental state currently, then you can't be playing college football, right? Like you gotta go get actual help. Like you shouldn't even be there on the team. Like let's do what we need to get you help. And then the biggest part for me is a $40 million lawsuit. And that goes without mentioning. We've known about this situation for weeks.
Yep.
We've known about this situation for weeks, and the audio is leaked the week that Ole Miss plays their biggest game against
What a
Georgia.
coincidence.
Again, we've been talking about this whole season here with the Michigan fiasco and everything that's gone on with LSU and Mason Smith. The NCAA and the media, they want to do this and drag college football through the mud, but I won't even talk about that as much as a $40 million lawsuit the kid wants. $40 million is more than my entire family has ever made in the history of our lineage combined. He wants $40 million because he took a few weeks off and then got kicked off of a football team. Like, where are we at in society? And he wouldn't be doing it unless he was in a room full of people and attorneys and consultants telling him we could actually get this money.
Yeah.
What has America become?
Well, it's and flaming. Another thing I find interesting is, you know what? You don't like it here. You don't like the way that Ole Miss is doing it, or Lane Kiffin, or it's not what you thought, what you signed up for. Guess what? We live in the age of the transfer portal, my friend, and you get 19 years because of COVID. Go hop in the transfer portal. Leave. Go somewhere else. This was a reaction to being told you are going from the defensive line to the offensive line and to play the scout team. And if you don't want to do that, if that's something you don't want to do and you don't want to be part of the team, then you can leave, either by transferring, or I'll kick you off the team. Flaming Dragon, my thing is this. 18 to 22-year-olds, you're still growing. I'm 34 years old. I'm still growing. There's decisions I made when I was 18 to 22 years old that I look at now and I'm like, man, why did I make that decision? I was still growing. But part of growing is being told what the truth is. And what I find interesting from the media is one guy can show up and say, hey, y'all need to leave because I'm bringing better players in. I'm bringing my Louis with me. So some of y'all are going to have to leave. That gets praised, that's fine, part of the deal. Another coach says, hey, I asked to meet with you. You didn't show up for 2 weeks. You said you weren't going to meet with me. So now I'm going to kick you off the team, but he's now the devil. Somebody square that one with me.
Well, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I think mental health's a little bit different. I think everybody on this set takes mental health seriously, especially when it comes to 18-year-olds to 20. I mean, especially when it comes to men. For the suicide retention rate, it's really bad when it comes to guys. But I think you're not a grown man, but you are a man when you're 18 years old, 18 to 19 to 20, and you should be treated like that. And I'm glad this got leaked because we need to tell the kids what the real deal is. We don't need to mix it up and just tiptoe around on eggshells and be scared to say what we really feel. And you think Lane Kiffin took it easy on this kid.
Yeah.
I promise you this right now, from a guy who's played college football, who's coached college football, I've seen kids come into the office, and hell, even when they came and talked to me, who got it a lot worse than what this kid got it. And it comes to growing up and how dads treat their kids, how kids are coddled in society these days. They think the world revolves around them. They think that they can miss this time because of my mental health or because of this or because of that. That's not how this stuff works. Look, coming from a guy who's been through a lot of things, especially growing up through high school, I had to become a man really early in my life. My dad committed suicide when I was in high school, and that same week I went and played a high school playoff game, baseball game on a Thursday. There's no time for this, and kids need to know easy times make soft men, and that's what we're seeing right now. And the only way you change that is tell kids what the deal is. And Lane Kiffin did that. He did it 100%, and I kudos for him for that. This kid needs to learn, and he needs to learn early. If you're going to talk about your mental health, which does matter, and I'm not saying it does, you need to go through your own avenues to get this fixed. You're not just playing anymore. This is a job, son. You're getting paid for this. You either show up to work, you either talk it through, or you pack your shit and you get out.
Yeah. I mean, he's exactly right. You can like the language, you can not like the language, but Lane is exactly right in that instance. And it's disrespectful. And some people say, you know what? Lane could have handled it differently. You know, I can understand that. We can, probably a lot of us can handle a lot of situations a lot better. But the overarching theme is, he is telling this person the truth. Good, bad, or indifferent. With me and my relationships, I have more respect for you if you just tell me the truth. If there's a problem between us, me and my wife talk about this all the time. Like, I'm the type of person where I want to get it out there. Like, if there's a problem, I want to get it out there. I want to talk about it so we can move on from it. And I want us to be honest with each other so we can start from a point of being honest and end with a point of being honest, right? And that's different than, you know, your wife's pregnant. Oh, do I look fat? That's not that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
But like the stuff that causes the biggest problems at the end is if Lane Kiffin was like, you know what? You're right. That's fine. Because now you set a precedent. Anybody can leave for 2 weeks and come back because now the precedent's set, and you're setting this kid up for failure down the road because now he thinks, let's say, because most of these guys aren't going to play in the NFL. You think if you work at a bank and you just, the guy tells you, hey, we want you to go from working by the vault to being a teller, and you don't want to do that, and you say, you know what, I'm just going to take 2 weeks off, and the boss asks you to meet with them because they want to talk about it, and you say no for 2 weeks, and then show up 2 weeks later and expect like nothing wrong was going to happen? Like you're preparing them for the real world. That is the main job of these coaches. I'm sure Lane Kiffin didn't want to be in this situation. I'm sure when he signed this kid, he didn't think he would be in this situation. But what type of man records another man without him knowing outside of, I'm taking down a criminal organization,
that's a big
or I'm Donnie Brasco?
Yeah.
I get that.
Fighting true evil.
Fighting true evil. You're recording a man behind his back.
Two questions for both of you here. When Lane Kiffin came out, I believe it was this summer, and he talked about the importance of mental health, does that seem more like a front now, or did he already know like this conversation had happened and he was trying to get out in front of that and be like pro mental health? Like, what does that make it look more hypocritical now?
I don't look like. I think this helped his mental.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the right
I think he'd be worse off if Lane just coddled this man through this entire thing. If he was like, "Hey, buddy, it's okay. This
Your
and
mom's
that. Like,
right.
Look, you can't play. Like, I don't think you should. You're not ready for football. I think you should do." Sometimes you got to sit a kid down who's just been coddled his entire life and tell him what the deal is. Like, sometimes you got to. Like, you got to put a kid's feet to the fire to somehow really get him over the hump in life. Because look, man, you're not going to play football forever. You're not. Some days, hell, sometimes I get up in the morning, I'm like, well, here we go again. But you have to do it. It is your job. It is your responsibility. Mental health is one thing, but it's also your responsibility, not only to yourself, but to your teammates, to get your ass up and show up.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. My father told me when I was younger, and Pat Dye, who was a legendary coach at Auburn, told me this is back when they used to have like 4-a-days, like when it was, you know, so the old timers know what I'm talking about. He used to say, he said Pat Dye one time after, God, it was like the last practice of a 4-a-day or something. He's like, you know, I don't get you guys up to run you, and we don't go through 4-a-days and lift all these weights, and y'all have to deal with me yelling all the time, and these other coaches yelling. I don't do that just to win football games. Like, in fact, that's not the main reason I do it. The main reason I do it is one day you are going to be a grown man with a family. You are going to have responsibilities. And when that alarm clock rings at 6 a.m, regardless if you're tired, if you're hurt, if you don't want to do it, you're going to get up and go to work because you got an electric bill to pay. You got a car payment. You got health insurance. You got a mortgage. As a provider, that's why I do it. That is why football and sports are one of the best teachers of life, in my opinion. And football especially, because it is the ultimate team sport that is a lot of prep, a lot of work, a lot of doing things that you don't want to do, a lot of things that are hard for 12 guaranteed opportunities a year. That's it. And you get in that routine. You understand the grind. The grind is not every now and then. It's every single day. When I started doing the J-Boy show, people were like, these other podcasters would be like, well, how many times you go in a week? I said, I'm going every day. They're like, every day? Putting out 2 or 3 a day. It's like, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it to the fullest because I was fortunate enough to have men in my life and adults in my life and mentors in my life and coaches in my life that would push me further than I could push myself. That is a coach's job, is to push players and people further than they can push themselves within the limits of reality. And I think that's what Lane was doing here.
So the last question here on this is, like, if this exchange happened this week or became available this week, we'd be talking about this week. That's natural. But we know this conversation happened a while ago. They had the audio a while ago. The fact this leaks 48 hours before Ole Miss plays the biggest game of the year when they're 8-1, they travel to Georgia. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're trying to use it as a distraction. I think they want to use it as something that gets played during the game this weekend. I hope that who's ever showing this game, whatever channel it's on, I can't remember, it's CBS, ESPN, whatever, I really hope they don't even mention it. Mm-hmm. I hope they don't breathe a word of it. Because these players on both these teams don't deserve that, right? The fans who've waited all year for this game don't deserve that. In reality, this is a very small thing, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of a lot that has led up to this game. But there are no coincidences. This was leaked at this time on purpose. I just hope it doesn't have an effect that the people who leaked it wanted it to.
Well, I hope it has a positive effect, and I hope the guys rally around Lane, to be honest. Because if you're look at the culture Lane's building right now. Hell, they're on their way to win 10 games, right? If the players rally around their coach, and if they're real ones, they'll know this conversation needed to be had. You have real
the
ones,
players know.
You have real ones in that locker room
teammates,
stand up for. And I'm telling you, don't let them find old boy. Don't let them see old boy anywhere. Rollins, whatever his name is, because I promise you, stuff like this gets your ass kicked. It gets your ass kicked now, and that locker room's tight in Ole Miss. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss comes out with a little extra gas on Saturday because of this.
I wouldn't be shocked either. Also, if you get a chance, go buy some merch. We're going to put the link in the description. We're going to put the link in the chat as well. That is one of the best ways to help the show. I promise you we're unveiling this new merch. It's a little bit, a couple days behind on the sample that we want to show you guys, but we are getting it in, I promise. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get to the Booster Club.
I started off with Lee Thompson. On the other side of this, he said, he should have kept his cool. It shows how immature Lane Kiffin handled this situation.
Look, I think we can always look back on situations and say, you know, maybe this could have been handled better. Maybe you shouldn't record somebody without their knowledge when you're having an intimate conversation or a heated conversation. I think we're all human beings and we deal with it in different ways. But sometimes the situation calls for it. Sometimes the situation calls for you being tougher on somebody than maybe just the status quo. I mean, we're human beings, right? We deal with emotions. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. I understand people saying you probably shouldn't have called him the P word. That didn't help anything, I'm sure. But is he wrong? Is he wrong?
No.
I don't think so. I think, to be honest with you, Lane handled it like probably 90% of coaches in that situation, not knowing they're going to be recorded, handle it. And I don't want to hear anything now about, they're playing for the love of the game. You're on full scholarship. You're still on full scholarship despite suing the university. And we're in the age of NIL. You want it in the business, buddy? Welcome to the business. If you're an employee and you don't show up for 2 weeks and the boss wants to meet with you, you are going to get fired. Try that at your job. Could the boss handle it better? Probably. But I think there's some instances where it's called for it. And I think Lane was right on the mark. I think he was right on the mark. And that's probably where we'll disagree on this, but I don't think we probably disagree with the substance of him kicking him off the team.
There was a moment when I was listening to that, I thought, this is the next step for Lane Kiffin as a head coach. This is the next step for him to grow and to be able to handle a situation like this better. But then I go back to what I said at the opening, which is I didn't hear the entire conversation. Like, if we're going to leak the audio, let's put out the entire context of the conversation. That could be the very end of a 20-minute talk that they had. And again, it doesn't excuse some of what happened in there, but I think you're right on in terms of like the thesis of what Lane Kiffin was saying and doing.
Hello, world. Do us a favor. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do it. Hit that like button as well. Turn that notification bell on and check out all the content we have. We put out videos all the time. We really appreciate y'all stopping by. Hope you're having a great week.